in the ancient realm of Alba Longa, a tale of ambition and destiny unfolds. Numitor, the rightful king, was betrayed by his younger brother Amulius, who usurped the throne. Consumed by fear of losing power, Amulius took drastic measures to eliminate any threats from Numitor's bloodline. He forced Rhea Silvia, Numitor's daughter, into the sacred order of the Vestal Virgins, ensuring she would remain unmarried and childless. Yet, the fates had other plans. One fateful night, Rhea was visited by Mars, the war god. From their union sprang twin sons, Romulus and Remus. Amulius, terrified of the potential challenge these boys posed, ordered them to be drowned in the Tiber River. However, fortune smiled upon the twins. The small basket that held them floated gracefully along the river's current until it came to rest beneath a sacred fig tree, the Ficus ruminalis. There, an extraordinary scene unfolded. A she-wolf, revered as a protector, found the twins and nursed them, while a woodpecker, also sacred to Mars, brought them food. Against all odds, the boys thrived in this wild embrace. Their fortunes changed when a shepherd named Faustulus found the twins. Along with his wife, he raised them as his own. As Romulus and Remus grew, they exhibited remarkable strength, courage, and leadership. Upon discovering their true heritage, they vowed to restore their grandfather Numitor to the throne, rallying the people to overthrow the tyrant Amulius. With Amulius defeated and peace restored in Alba Longa, the brothers turned their sights to the future. They sought to establish a city of their own, but could not agree on its location. Romulus favored the Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred the Aventine Hill. To resolve their dispute, they sought a sign from the gods. Romulus claimed the more favorable omen, and thus began the construction of a new city on the Palatine. As Romulus built protective walls around the burgeoning city, Remus, in a moment of defiance, leaped over the wall, mocking its strength. Infuriated by this challenge, Romulus struck down his brother, declaring that anyone who dared cross his walls would face the same fate. With Remus gone, Romulus named the city Rome in his honor, in the year 753 BCE, and ascended as its first king. As ruler, Romulus laid the groundwork for Rome's greatness. He founded vital institutions like the Senate and the Roman legions, establishing religious and political customs that would shape Roman identity for centuries. One of the most notorious episodes of his reign was the rape of the Sabine women. Desiring wives for the men of his fledgling city, Romulus invited the neighboring Sabines to a grand festival. Amidst the celebrations, his men seized the Sabine women, igniting conflict, yet ultimately forging a powerful alliance between the Romans and Sabines. Romulus created the Senate as an advisory council, appointing 100 of the most noble men in society. He referred to these men as patres, and their descendants became known as the patricians. To clarify his authority, he surrounded himself with attendants, particularly the 12 officers of the court. He organized the military into 3 divisions of cavalry, called centuries: the Rams, Romans, the Tities, after the Sabine king, and the Luceres, Etruscans. Additionally, he divided the population into 30 curia, named after the 30 Sabine women who intervened to end the conflict between Romulus and Thaddeus. The curia served as the voting units in the popular assemblies. Romulus waged war against various peoples, including the Fidenets and the Veneti, among others. He reigned for 37 or 38 years. Romulus ruled for many prosperous years, guiding Rome through its formative period, until his mysterious disappearance during a violent storm. Legends say he was taken up to the heavens, deified as the god Quirinus, ensuring his legacy as both a mortal king and a divine protector of Rome. Numa Pompilius, 715, 673 BC. Numa Pompilius is often regarded as the second king of Rome, succeeding Romulus. His reign is characterized by a focus on religious and cultural reforms rather than military conquests. Numa hailed from the Sabine tribe and was known for his wisdom and piety. According to legend, he was chosen by the Roman people to lead them after Romulus' death. His reign began in 715 BC and lasted for 43 years, marked by a significant shift from the militaristic foundations laid by Romulus to a more peaceful society. Legend has it that his lover, a nymph named Aegirna, granted him divine approval for his heretical actions. Through a mixture of wine and honey, he captured 2 divine figures, Farnus and Picus, who revealed prophecies and magical knowledge to him. Some tales suggest that he was a follower of Pythagoras, but this is unlikely due to the significant difference in time between their lives. Numa established many of Rome's religious practices, including the creation of the priestly positions, such as the Pontifex Maximus and the Vestal Virgin. He introduced the lunar calendar, which included the months of January and February, and adjusted the Roman year to align more closely with the lunar cycles. Numa divided the Roman people into new tribes and crafted a system of laws that emphasized justice and morality. Numa is remembered as a king who prioritized the spiritual and moral fabric of Roman society. His contributions laid the groundwork for the religious institutions that would dominate Roman life for centuries. Tullus Hostilius, the third king of Rome, is best known for his aggressive military campaigns and the expansion of Roman territory. Tullus was a warrior king, believed to be a descendant of the original Romans. He took the throne after Numa Pompilius around 673 BC. His reign lasted approximately 31 years, during which he sought to strengthen Rome through conquest. Tullus famously waged war against the neighboring city of Alba Longa. The conflict culminated in the Battle of the Horatian Curiati, where three brothers from each side fought to settle the dispute. After Rome's victory, Tullus demolished Alba Longa and transferred its inhabitants to Rome, effectively doubling its population. He is credited with building the Curia Hostilia, the original Senate house, and establishing the first military standards for the Roman legions. Tullus Hostilius fought several successful wars against the tribes of the Veientes, v.e. the Sabines, and other neighboring peoples. Livy reports that Tullus paid little attention to religious rites during his reign, viewing them as unworthy of a king's focus. However, toward the end of his reign, Rome was impacted by a series of ominous signs, including a hail of stones on Mount Alban, which led to a 9-day religious festival known as the Novendiale. Additionally, a loud voice was reportedly heard on the mountaintop, lamenting that the Albanians were not honoring their ancient gods, and a plague struck Rome. Tullus Hostilius is remembered as a king who embodied the martial spirit of early Rome, expanding its influence through force and establishing foundational military traditions. Ancus Marcius, the fourth king of Rome, is often portrayed as a mediator between the warlike ambitions of his predecessors and the need for stability and infrastructure. Ancus was the grandson of Numa Pompilius and ascended to the throne around 642 BC. His reign lasted for 25 years. He is noted for his efforts to build a strong and prosperous Rome, focusing on both military and civic improvements. Ancus continued the expansion of Roman territory, waging successful campaigns against the Latins and securing Roman dominance in the region. He is credited with founding the port of Ostia at the mouth of the Tiber River, which facilitated trade and commerce. Ancus instituted various legal reforms to regulate the growing population of Rome, ensuring that the rights of citizens were protected. Ancus Marcius is remembered as a king who balanced military strength with civic development, laying the groundwork for Rome's future as a powerful city-state. Tarquinius Priscus, 616–579 BC. Tarquinius Priscus, the fifth king of Rome, is known for his ambitious building projects and efforts to strengthen the city's power. On the advice of his formidable wife, Tanaquil, Tarquinius Priscus made his way to Rome, stepping into a city teeming with ambition and intrigue. Livy portrays Tanaquil as a strong and influential figure, guiding her husband through the treacherous waters of Roman politics. After the death of Ancus Marcius, Tarquin took on the role of guardian to Marcius's sons, but ambition burned brightly within him. Seizing the throne for himself, he deftly removed any obstacles in his path, with Tanaquil orchestrating the rise of Servius Tullius, her son-in-law, as his successor. During his reign, Tarquinius Priscus was a visionary leader who expanded the Senate and elevated the ranks of the knights, significantly enhancing the political landscape of Rome. His era saw remarkable construction projects that transformed the city into a bustling hub of activity. He commissioned the Grand Circus Maximus, a monumental horse racing arena that would become a centerpiece of Roman entertainment, and the Cloaca Maxima, an innovative sewer system that showcased Roman engineering prowess. Additionally, he instituted the Roman Games, an extravagant celebration that captivated the populace, and fortified the city with a protective wall. One of the most captivating tales from his reign involves the enigmatic Sibyl. A mysterious woman approached Tarquinius, offering to sell him 9 sacred books at an exorbitant price. Skeptical, he declined her offer. In a shocking turn of events, she burned 3 of the books and returned with the same price for the remaining 6. Still unconvinced, he refused again. Undeterred, the woman burned 3 more and offered the last 3 at the same price. This time, Tarquinius recognized the value of the remaining texts, and, realizing their significance, agreed to pay the full price. These books, known as the Sibylline books, would guide the Senate in times of crisis, becoming a cornerstone of Roman religious and political life. Tarquinius's reign marked a period of significant Etruscan influence in Rome, intertwining their culture and religious practices with those of the Romans. Tales of his close ties with Etruscan kings and the adoption of their rituals highlight a time when prophecies from Etruscan augurs guided Roman decision-making, intertwining the fates of both cultures. Intrigue marked the latter part of Tarquinius's reign as he faced opposition from the nobility, particularly due to his growing power and the influence of Tanaquil. His eventual assassination by political rivals foreshadowed the tumultuous times to come, as the struggle for power among the elite would lead to the end of the monarchy in Rome. Servius Tullius, 578–535 BC. Servius Tullius, the 6th king of Rome, is remembered for his significant political and social reforms that transformed the Roman state. Roman and Greek sources depict Servius Tullius as a figure of extraordinary origins and destiny. Born into slavery, he rose to prominence by marrying the daughter of Tarquinius Priscus, the first Etruscan king of Rome, who was assassinated in 579 BC. Remarkably, Servius was the first king to ascend to the throne without popular support. His rise was orchestrated by his ambitious mother-in-law. He became the first monarch elected by the Senate, bypassing the will of the people entirely. Several legends surround Servius's parentage, some depicting his father as a divine figure. Livy recounts that Servius' mother was a Latin princess captured by the Romans. In a sign of his destined greatness, a ring of fire was said to have appeared around his head at birth, marking him for future kingship. The Emperor Claudius later revised this narrative, portraying Servius as an Etruscan mercenary named Mastarna, who had fought for Caelius Vabina. Despite his unconventional ascent, Servius became a beloved king and one of the most significant benefactors in Roman history. He achieved military victories against the Veii and Etruscans, greatly expanding Rome's territory to include the Quirinal, Viminal, and Esquiline hills. His reign was marked by a series of pivotal reforms that transformed Roman society. Servius is credited with establishing the Compitalia festivals, dedicated to the household gods, and building temples to the goddesses Fortuna and Diana. He also introduced Rome's first true coinage, a significant advancement that facilitated trade and commerce. One of his most groundbreaking achievements was the expansion of privileges for the lower classes, both citizens and non-citizens. Despite facing opposition from the patrician elite, Servius worked tirelessly to improve their status and wealth, fostering a sense of community and loyalty among the populace. Livy states that Servius reigned for an impressive 44 years, but his life ended in tragedy. He was murdered by his own daughter, Tullia, and her husband, Tarquinius Superbus, in a shocking act of betrayal. This tragic crime, fueled by ambition and arrogance, ultimately led to Tarquinius's downfall and the end of the monarchy. Servius's legacy lived on as his reforms laid the groundwork for the establishment of the Roman Republic, marking a pivotal shift in Roman governance. The echoes of his reign continue to resonate throughout history, reminding us of the complexities of power, family, and the struggle for justice in ancient Rome. Tarquinius Superbus, 535–509 BC. The reign of Tarquinius Superbus, the last king of Rome, is filled with tales of intrigue, prophecy, and dramatic events that would leave an indelible mark on Roman history. Tarquinius Superbus, known as the Proud, ascended to the throne through violence and treachery. Following the assassination of Servius Tullius, Tarquinius refused to bury the body of his predecessor, declaring him a usurper. This act of disrespect fueled animosity among the populace and sowed the seeds of rebellion against his tyrannical rule. Intriguingly, legends suggest that prophetic signs foretold Tarquinius's downfall. It was said that during his reign, the Sibylline books, which contained oracles and prophecies, were consulted. The priests warned of dire consequences if the king continued on his path of tyranny. These prophecies became a haunting reminder of the potential fate awaiting a ruler who disregarded the will of the people and the gods. To keep the people distracted from the illegitimacy of his rule, he engaged them constantly in wars and public works. Yet, despite his efforts, the Sabines refused to recognize him as king. In response, he marched against them, swiftly imposing his will. Not content with merely subjugating the Sabines, he turned his attention to the Rutulians, accusing them of harboring criminals exiled from Rome. As he laid siege to the city of Gabii, Tarquinius resorted to cunning. His son, Sextus, feigned desertion and sought asylum within the enemy walls. Presenting himself as a victim of his father's cruelty, he won the sympathy of the Gabians. Gaining their trust, he was welcomed into the city and assumed command of their militia. Once in a position of power, Sextus sent a secret message to his father, asking for advice on how to conquer Gabii. Tarquinius, instead of responding directly, took the messenger for a stroll in his garden, where he used a small stick to sever the heads of the tallest poppies in bloom. After dismissing the messenger, he instructed him to convey only what he had witnessed. Understanding the grim symbolism behind his father's actions, Sextus orchestrated a coup against Gabii's nobility, confiscating their wealth and redistributing it to the people. The plebeians, enamored by his generosity, readily opened the city gates to the Roman army. With Gabii under Roman control, Sextus was installed as its dictator. One of the most famous stories from Tarquinius's reign is the tragic fate of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose tragic story would spark a revolution. Lucretia was raped by Tarquinius's son, Sextus Tarquinius. After suffering the humiliation, she took her own life, leaving a message of the injustice she faced. Her death galvanized the Roman people against the Tarquin dynasty, igniting a fierce desire for change and leading to the eventual overthrow of Tarquinius Superbus. In the wake of Lucretia's death, a wave of outrage swept through Rome. Prominent leaders, including Lucius Junius Brutus, rallied the citizens to revolt against Tarquinius. The tales of conspiracy, betrayal, and the desire for justice led to a popular uprising. The citizens of Rome expelled Tarquinius and his family, marking the end of the monarchy and the birth of the Roman Republic. Steeped in intrigue and drama, the expulsion of Tarquinius Superbus was not just a political shift. It was framed as a fight against tyranny and a reclaiming of power by the people. This pivotal moment in Roman history was filled with prophecies about the future of Rome as a free state, setting the stage for the development of a new governance system. In 509 BC, the tides of power shifted dramatically in ancient Rome, as the wealthy elite rose up to reject monarchy, paving the way for the establishment of the Roman Republic. This new political landscape placed authority in the hands of the Senate, a governing body that would come to wield significant influence over the Republic's affairs. The Senate, originally composed of 300 members, was entrusted with vital responsibilities, appointing individuals to key civil and military positions, directing armies, declaring wars, rewarding soldiers and their leaders, supervising the election of consuls, and holding these consuls accountable. These consuls who ruled the Republic shared executive power and were typically elected, although some were nominated based on their social status and reputation. The Roman Senate is often regarded as the first of its kind, serving as a model for modern democratic state. An intricate system emerged, marked by annual elections for judges and various representatives, ensuring a balance of power through checks and balances. Aristocrats, but its influence grew over time. The judiciary during the Republic was multifaceted, including positions like the praetor, judge, the imprescriptor, and the quaestor, financial officer. While judicial roles were initially exclusive to patricians, they eventually expanded to include notable plebeians. The Republican voting assemblies, such as the leading council, voted on critical issues like war and peace, while the tribal assembly elected officials to less prominent positions. At this time, Rome was still a modest city, sprawling across an estimated 10,000 square miles. However, tensions simmered between the patricians and plebeians. The patricians dominated power and controlled the legal system, wielding their knowledge of unwritten laws to their advantage. This exploitation fueled resentment among the plebeians, who demanded that these legal rules be codified. After a decade of struggle, the plebeians triumphed in 452 BC, leading to the formation of a committee of 10 patricians tasked with writing down these laws. Before the committee could begin, a mission was dispatched to Greece to study the codified laws of Solon and Draco, adapting them to Rome's unique context. By 451 BC, the Committee of 10, armed with sweeping legislative, judicial, executive, and military powers for 1 year, began its work without interference from the monarchy. Their efforts culminated in the creation of the Law of the 12 Tablets, a monumental achievement that codified legal principles for all citizens. With the fall of the Roman monarchy, executive power was divided between 2 annually elected officials known as judges, later called consuls. Initially, neither consul held supremacy over the other, allowing for appeals against their decisions. However, the specter of war with the Sabines and the Latin League loomed large, fostering fears that the consuls might seek to restore the monarchy. In response to these fears, the praetor maximus, or dictator, emerged as the supreme ruler among the Latin cities. The first recorded dictator was Titus Laertius in 501 BC, alongside co-prefect Spurius Cassius. Though the title praetor maximus may have been used early on, the official designation of dictator evolved to praetor publicus, or master of the infantry. His second-in-command, the praetor equitum, served as the master of the horse, overseeing cavalry operations. This terminology became synonymous with the role of dictator in the early republic, marking a pivotal moment in Rome's political evolution. The Battle of the Allia, fought in 390 BC, was a significant and dramatic conflict in ancient Roman history. It marked a pivotal moment when the Gauls invaded Rome, leading to the city's temporary capture and a profound impact on Roman society and military strategy. The Gauls, a Celtic tribe from what is now France, the Gauls were known for their fierce warrior culture. Under the leadership of Brennus, they sought to expand their territory and influence. At the time, Rome was a growing city-state, but it was still vulnerable. Its military forces were not yet fully professionalized, and it was not prepared for a large-scale invasion. The battle took place near the Allia River, approximately 11 miles north of Rome. This strategic location was crucial for both the Romans and the invading Gauls. Led by the consul Lucius Manlius, the Roman army underestimated the strength and ferocity of the Gallic forces. They were poorly positioned and morale was low. On July 18, 390 BC, the Gauls engaged the Roman forces. The Romans fought bravely but were quickly overwhelmed due to their lack of preparation and the superior tactics of the Gauls. The battle ended in a catastrophic defeat for Rome. Following their victory at the Allia, the Gauls advanced towards Rome. The city was largely undefended, and they managed to capture and sack it, leading to widespread panic and devastation. The loss at the Allia and the subsequent sack of Rome left a lasting mark on Roman identity. It instilled a deep sense of fear regarding external threats, prompting reforms in military organization and strategy. The defeat ultimately galvanized Rome. In the years that followed, the Romans rebuilt their city and military, leading to a series of reforms that would strengthen the Republic. The memory of the Battle of the Allia became a rallying point for Roman unity and resilience. The Battle of the Allia was not just a military defeat, it was a transformative event that shaped Roman history. It highlighted the vulnerabilities of the early Roman Republic and set the stage for future military reforms and the eventual rise of Rome as a dominant power in the ancient world. The lessons learned from this battle influenced Roman tactics and policies for generations to come. The First Samnite War, 343-341 BC, was a significant conflict in early Roman history, marking the beginning of Rome's expansion into southern Italy. The Samnites were a group of tribes in the central and southern Apennines. They were fierce warriors and had established a strong confederation, posing a significant threat to neighboring states, including Rome. By the early 4th century BC, Rome had been consolidating its power in central Italy and had already clashed with various neighboring tribes. The growing influence of the Samnites was seen as a direct challenge to Roman expansion. Tensions rose due to territorial disputes, particularly over the control of the region of Campania, which was rich in resources and strategically located. The Samnites had formed alliances with other local tribes, creating a formidable opposition to Roman interests. The Romans sought to assert their dominance and secure their borders. The war began when Roman forces intervened in Campania, where the Samnites were exerting influence. Rome aimed to protect its allies and expand its territory. Several skirmishes and battles took place during the war. The Romans faced challenges due to the rugged terrain and the Samnites' guerrilla tactics. Battle of Mount Gaurus. Roman forces, under the command of the consul Publius Decius Mus, achieved a notable victory against the Samnites. Boosting Roman morale, the Romans attempted to besiege the Samnite stronghold of Capua, which led to a protracted conflict. The Romans faced difficulties in maintaining their supply lines and dealing with the Samnites' resilience. Although the Romans won several battles, they struggled to achieve a decisive victory. The conflict led to a stalemate, with both sides suffering significant losses. Peace Treaty, 341 BC. After several years of fighting and heavy casualties, both sides were exhausted. The First Samnite War concluded with a peace treaty that allowed for a temporary cessation of hostilities. The Romans gained some territorial concessions, but did not achieve complete dominance over the Samnites. The challenges faced during the war prompted the Romans to reform their military tactics and organization, paving the way for future successes. While the war ended, tensions between Rome and the Samnites persisted, leading to further conflicts, including the Second and Third Samnite Wars. After the First Samnite War, tensions remained high between Rome and the Samnite tribes. The Samnites sought to reassert their power in central Italy, particularly over the territories of Campania and Apulia. Rome continued its expansionist policy, establishing colonies and alliances that threatened Samnite interests. The Romans aimed to secure their territories and suppress any opposition. The Samnites viewed Roman expansion into their territory as a direct threat. The Romans, on the other hand, aimed to control key trade routes and resources in southern Italy. The Romans had allied with several local tribes, which antagonized the Samnites. Disputes over these alliances and territorial claims fueled the desire for war. The outbreak of war, 326 BC. The war officially began when the Samnites attacked Roman outposts in Campania. The Romans responded by sending a large army to protect their interests. Battle of the Caudine Forks, 321 BC. One of the war's most significant battles occurred here. The Roman army, commanded by the consuls, was ambushed and trapped in a narrow mountain pass by the Samnites. The Romans were forced to surrender, leading to a humiliating defeat, and the famous phrase, the Caudine Forks. Despite this setback, Rome regrouped and focused on rebuilding its military strength. The Romans implemented reforms that improved their tactics and logistics. Military campaigns, 320, 304 BC. The Romans launched a series of military campaigns to regain lost territory and defeat the Samnites. The Romans besieged several Samnite cities, gradually weakening their resistance. Battle of Bovianum, 305 BC. The Romans achieved a decisive victory, leading to the fall of key Samnite strongholds. Throughout the war, both sides attempted to secure alliances with other tribes. The Romans managed to gain the support of some local populations, further isolating the Samnites. Peace Treaty, 304 BC. After years of intense fighting and significant casualties on both sides, the Second Samnite War ended with a peace treaty. The Samnites agreed to cede territory to Rome and recognize its authority in the region. The Third Samnite War, 298-290 BC, was the final and decisive conflict between the Roman Republic and the Samnite tribes. This war solidified Rome's dominance over central and southern Italy and had lasting implications for the expansion of Roman power. Following the Second Samnite War, Rome had established significant control over southern Italy, but relations with the Samnites remained strained. The Samnites sought to reclaim their influence and territory. Alliances and rivalries. The Samnites formed alliances with other tribes, including the Etruscans and Gauls, in an effort to counter Roman expansion. This coalition aimed to challenge Roman authority in the region. Outbreak of war, 298 BC. The war began when the Samnites launched an attack on Roman territories. This prompted Rome to mobilize its army to respond to the threat. Battle of the Trebia River. Early skirmishes saw the Samnites achieving some initial successes, but the Romans quickly regrouped and strategized for a larger conflict. Battle of Sentinum, 295 BC. This pivotal battle involved a large coalition of Samnite forces, Etruscans and Gauls, against the Romans. The Romans, under the command of consuls Publius Decius, Mas and Quintus Fabius Maximus, achieved a crucial victory, inflicting significant losses on the coalition. Following their victory at Sentinum, the Romans launched a series of sieges against key Samnite strongholds, systematically dismantling their military capabilities. Battle of Aquilonia, 293 BC. Another decisive Roman victory that further weakened Samnite resistance. The Romans captured and occupied important cities, solidifying their control over the region. The Romans continued to push into Samnite territory, ultimately leading to the capitulation of key Samnite leaders and the disbandment of their coalition. Peace Treaty, 290 BC. The Third Samnite War concluded with the signing of a peace treaty. The Samnites were forced to cede significant territories to Rome and recognize its supremacy in southern Italy. The successful conclusion of the Third Samnite War marked the end of Samnite resistance and solidified Roman control over much of Italy. Rome emerged as the dominant power in the region. Military reforms and innovations. The war prompted further military reforms within Rome, leading to a more professional and organized army that would serve the Republic well in future conflicts. After their defeat, many Samnites were gradually integrated into the Roman system, with some receiving Roman citizenship and others serving as allies in subsequent military campaigns. The Punic Wars were an epic series of battles that raged between the superpowers of the ancient world, Rome and Carthage, between 264 and 146 BC. These fierce rivals clashed in three brutal conflicts that spanned the Mediterranean, from the hills of Sicily to the waves of the western seas. For 43 years, land and naval forces locked in combat, reshaping the ancient world through staggering human and material losses. The wars also sparked a 4-year rebellion against Carthage in 241 BC, further intensifying this dramatic struggle for dominance. The Punic Wars were not just battles, they were a fight for the future of the Mediterranean. After securing control over most of Italy, Rome faced a new challenge: the powerful Greek colonies in the south, known as Magna Graecia. Some of these cities, like Thurii and Crotona, chose diplomacy over war, agreeing to ally with Rome in exchange for integration into Roman society. However, not all the Greek cities were willing to yield. The proud city of Tarentum, located in southern Italy, rejected Roman advances and turned to Pyrrhus, the king of Epirus, for help. Seeing an opportunity to challenge Rome and replicate the legacy of Alexander the Great, Pyrrhus crossed the Adriatic Sea in 281 BC, with a formidable force: 25,000 soldiers, 3,000 cavalry, and even war elephants. The Romans met him in battle at Heraclea, where Pyrrhus secured a costly victory. Though triumphant, he suffered heavy losses, leading to the phrase, Pyrrhic victory, a win so devastating that it might as well be a defeat. While Pyrrhus expected support from other Greek cities in Italy, supplies and reinforcements never came. In desperation, he entered into negotiations with the Roman Senate. But before peace could be achieved, the blind Roman elder Appius Claudius intervened, convincing the Senate to reject any treaty with a foreign invader on Italian soil. Forced to continue fighting, Pyrrhus won another hard-fought battle at Asculum, but grew increasingly frustrated with his unreliable allies. In a bold move, Pyrrhus sailed to Sicily, hoping to drive the Carthaginians from the island. Despite initial success, including lifting the siege of Syracuse, the Sicilian Greeks failed to provide the support he needed. Disillusioned, Pyrrhus left Sicily, famously remarking that the island was a battlefield between two great powers, Rome and Carthage. Pyrrhus returned to Italy in 275 BC, where he suffered a crushing defeat at Beneventum. The dream of conquering Italy in flames, Pyrrhus returned to Epirus, only to be killed by a falling roof tile, thrown by an old woman during a skirmish in Argos in 272 BC. Pyrrhus' defeat left Rome as the undisputed ruler of Italy. But the rising power of Carthage loomed large across the Mediterranean. Tensions between the two superpowers reached a boiling point over the island of Sicily. The trigger. The city of Messana in 264 BC, the mercenary group known as the Mamertines had seized Messana, slaughtering its Greek inhabitants and setting up base. When threatened by the Greek ruler Hiron II of Syracuse, the Mamertines called on both Carthage and Rome for aid. Carthage responded first, but when the Romans arrived, the Carthaginians peacefully withdrew. However, this was only the beginning. Carthage soon attempted to reoccupy Messana, aligning with Hiron to keep the Romans out. The Romans, unwilling to let Carthage gain a foothold so close to Italy, responded with force. They sent their consul, Gaius Claudius, across the Strait of Messina with an army. The arrival of Roman reinforcements lifted the siege of Messana, and Carthage's alliance with Hiron was shattered. The Romans had secured Messana, but the stage was set for a massive confrontation. The First Punic War had begun. This war, fought primarily for control of Sicily, raged from 264 BC to 241 BC. Initially, Carthage dominated the seas, but Rome adapted, building a navy from scratch. The Romans launched attacks not only on Sicily, but also on Carthaginian territories, such as Corsica and Sardinia. The turning point came in 241 BC, when Rome decisively defeated Carthage's fleet off the coast of the Aegean Islands, forcing Carthage to sue for peace. In the aftermath of their defeat, the Carthaginians turned their attention to Spain, rich in silver mines. Under the leadership of Hamilcar Barca, Carthage rebuilt its wealth and power. Hamilcar's son-in-law, Hasdrubal, continued his expansion in Spain, establishing the city of New Carthage, modern Cartagena, as a major hub of commerce and military strength. Hamilcar Barca's efforts successfully restored Carthage's economic prosperity by the time of his death in 282 BCC. His son-in-law Hasdrubal took over the reins in Spain from 228 to 221 BC, following the same ambitious policies. He established a city called New Carthage, Nova Carthago, located in a region rich in silver mines. This city became the heart of Carthaginian power in Spain, strategically placed at a prime maritime trading location. However, Rome, wary of Carthaginian success, imposed limits on Hasdrubal, forbidding him from expanding beyond the Ebro River. Tensions escalated as Hasdrubal led military campaigns aimed at expanding Carthaginian control, but his sudden assassination in 221 BC cut short his efforts. Following Hasdrubal's death, leadership in Spain passed to the legendary Hannibal Barca, the son of Hamilcar. From the outset, Hannibal vowed to fulfill his father's lifelong dream of avenging Carthage's humiliation by Rome. The moment he took charge in Spain, Rome was still clashing with Gaul, modern-day France, and Hannibal seized the opportunity to stoke the flames of war. The immediate trigger for conflict was Hannibal's attack on Saguntum, a Roman-allied city, in 218 BC. The siege marked the start of the Second Punic War, 218-201 BC, which would spread across Italy and Africa in the coming years. But as ancient historian Polybius explained, the Saguntum incident was just a spark in a tinderbox. The true causes were Carthage's resentment towards Rome, dating back to the loss of Sicily, Carthage's success in Spain, and the competition over control of Sardinia and Corsica. These issues had been festering for years, and Saguntum simply provided an excuse for Hannibal to launch his campaign of vengeance. Despite Roman warnings, Hannibal attacked and captured Saguntum after an 8-month siege in 219 BC. Rome's response was swift. They demanded that Carthage hand over Hannibal. When Carthage refused, both sides prepared for war. Rome sent one army to Spain and another to Africa, but Hannibal shocked the Romans by undertaking one of the most daring military campaigns in history. He led his forces, including war elephants, across the Alps into Italy. Hannibal's victories in Italy were swift and devastating. He crossed the Ebro River, breaking Carthaginian commitments to stay within the boundaries, and advanced through Italy, winning several major battles with his cunning strategies. His most famous triumph came at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where he inflicted one of the worst defeats Rome ever suffered. This victory shook Rome's grip on its Italian allies, as many of them defected to Hannibal's side. However, Hannibal's success in Italy was short-lived. Despite his tactical brilliance, he lacked the resources to fully besiege Rome or force it into submission. After the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal's forces were increasingly isolated, and Rome gradually regained its hold on the Italian peninsula. The turning point came in Spain, where Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio, later Scipio Africanus, succeeded in driving Carthage out by 206 BC. By 204 BC, Scipio had devised a bold plan to shift the war's theater to Africa. Landing near the city of Utica, he formed alliances with local Numidian leaders, including Massinissa, whose ambitions clashed with Carthage's. Massinissa had long sought to build an empire stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to Egypt, using Carthage's weakened position to his advantage. Despite initial setbacks, including Sephax, a rival Numidian leader, allying with Carthage through his marriage to Sophoniba, daughter of Hasdrubal, Scipio pushed forward. In 202 BC, Scipio's forces, reinforced by Massinissa's Numidian cavalry, met Hannibal's army at the Battle of Zamadatta. Despite Hannibal's military genius, Scipio's forces emerged victorious, marking the end of Carthage as a major power. The terms of peace were devastating. Carthage had to cede all territory outside of Africa, surrender its navy except for 10 ships, and pay a crippling indemnity of 10,000 talents. Moreover, Carthage could not wage war without Rome's approval. Hannibal, ever defiant, continued to resist Rome, but by 195 BC he was forced into exile. Fleeing to the eastern Mediterranean, he sought refuge with various rulers, including Antiochus III of Syria. But Hannibal's attempts to rally opposition to Rome failed. In 183 BC, facing capture by Roman forces in Bithynia, he took his own life rather than fall into enemy hands. As for Scipio Africanus, he returned to Rome a hero, celebrated for his victories over Carthage. His legacy was cemented with the title Africanus in honor of his conquests. Carthage's fortunes briefly recovered through trade, but its neighbors particularly repeatedly encroached on its territory. By 150 BC, Carthage, desperate to defend itself, retaliated without Roman approval, violating the peace terms set after Zama. This gave Rome the perfect pretext to launch the Third Punic War. The Carthaginians, realizing they faced annihilation, refused Rome's demand to evacuate their city and relocate inland. The resulting war lasted 3 brutal years, with Carthage under constant siege. By 146 BC, Scipio Aemilianus led a final assault on the city. Carthage was sacked, its buildings razed, and its inhabitants sold into slavery. The city itself was cursed by Roman priests, ensuring it would never rise again. Thus, Carthage, once the most powerful city in the Mediterranean, was wiped from the map, and its territory became the region. The Macedonian Wars were a series of dramatic conflicts that pitted the rising power of Rome against the once mighty kingdom of Macedonia in the eastern Mediterranean. These wars not only cemented Roman dominance in the region, but also marked the beginning of its long-lasting influence over the entire Mediterranean world. Following their victories in the Punic Wars, Rome turned eastward, seeking control over both the western and eastern Mediterranean, and the Macedonian Wars became a crucial step in its expansion. First Macedonian War, 215 BC, 205 BC. The First Macedonian War ignited when Philip V of Macedon allied with Hannibal during Rome's struggle against Carthage. Seeing an opportunity to weaken Rome, Philip hoped to rally all of Greece to his side, planning to dominate the region once Rome was dealt with. However, rumors spread that Philip intended to conquer Greece itself with the help of his Carthaginian allies, a betrayal that alarmed the Greek city-states. In response, the Aetolian League allied with Rome to thwart Philip's ambitions. Rome, with its masterful diplomacy, leveraged this alliance to pressure Philip into signing the Peace of Phoenix in 205 BC, ending the conflict with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Rome had, however, proven itself a formidable player in Greek affairs. Second Macedonian War, 200 BC, 196 BC. Fresh off their victory against Carthage, Rome turned its gaze once more towards Macedonia. Philip V, having failed to honor the previous peace agreement, began encroaching upon Greek territories, sparking renewed conflict. The Roman Senate, still smarting from Philip's past alignment with Hannibal, seized this chance to crush Macedonia for good. Led by the young and ambitious Titus Quinctius Flamininus, the Romans marched into Greece. In a dramatic showdown at the Battle of Cynocephalae in 197 BC, Flamininus's army shattered Philip's forces. This decisive victory was a masterclass in Roman military strategy, marking the beginning of the end for Macedonia's reign over Greece. In a stunning act of diplomacy, Flamininus declared all of Greece free from Macedonian and Roman control at the Isthmian Games in 196 BC. Plutarch famously wrote that the cheers from the assembled crowds were so deafening that birds flying overhead fell from the sky. Rome's reputation as both liberator and conqueror was now firmly established. The Seleucid War, 192 BC, 188 BC. As Greece celebrated its newfound freedom, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The Aetolian League, dissatisfied with its share of the spoils, invited Antiochus III of the Seleucid Empire to liberate Greece from what they saw as Roman oppression. Antiochus entered Greece with the backing of none other than Hannibal himself, though Hannibal wisely advised against a small-scale invasion. Rome, however, would not tolerate such defiance. The Roman legions, under Scipio Africanus and his brother Lucius, decisively crushed Antiochus at the Battle of Magnesia in 189 BC. This victory marked Rome's first major foray into Asia and laid the groundwork for its future expansion eastward. Antiochus was forced to retreat, and the Seleucid dream of controlling Greece crumbled. Third Macedonian War, 171 BC, 167 BC. The flames of rebellion reignited in 171 BC, when Perseus, the son of Philip V and the last king of Macedonia, challenged Roman power. Initially, Perseus enjoyed success, defeating the Romans at the Battle of Callinicus, but his triumph was short-lived. In 168 BC, the legendary Roman general Lucius Aemilius Paulus crushed Perseus at the Battle of Pydna. Macedonia, once a proud and powerful kingdom, was utterly devastated. Perseus was paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, marking the end of Macedonian independence. The ancient kingdom was split into 4 separate republics, its people subjected to harsh Roman rule. The Roman victory also brought immense destruction to the nearby region of Epirus, where 150,000 inhabitants were enslaved in an act of brutal retribution. Fourth Macedonian War, 149 BC, 148 BC. Though Rome had decimated Macedonia's military power, the flames of rebellion were not easily extinguished. In 149 BC, a pretender named Andriscus, claiming to be the son of Perseus, led a popular uprising. Rome swiftly responded, sending its legions to crush the rebellion once and for all. This time Rome showed no mercy. Macedonia was fully absorbed into the Roman Empire, becoming a Roman province. 2 years later, Greece followed suit, marking the end of its independence. Rome's influence now stretched across the entire eastern Mediterranean. The fall of Greece. Though Greece technically retained its independence, it was, in reality, a shadow of its former self. Factionalism, internal strife, and class warfare plagued the Greek city-states. When the Romans, led by Mummius, marched into Greece in 146 BC, they faced little organized resistance. The fall of Corinth, with its treasures looted and its people enslaved, signaled the final collapse of Greece. Mummius left Greece in ruins, its once glorious civilization reduced to a mere province under Roman rule. Only Athens and Sparta were allowed to retain their laws, but their influence was minimal. Greece had vanished from the stage of world politics for the next 2 millennia. The Gracchus brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, were significant figures in the history of the Roman Republic, known for their efforts at social and political reform in the 2nd century BCE. They were members of the Roman nobility, born into a distinguished patrician family, but their reforms primarily aimed to address the growing inequalities in Roman society and the plight of the lower classes, especially the plebeians, commoners. Tiberius Gracchus, c. 133 BCE. Tiberius was the elder of the 2 brothers, and served as a tribune of the plebs in 133 BCE. During his time he saw the struggles of Roman soldiers, many of whom lost their land while serving in the military, as wealthy elites expanded their estates at the expense of small farmers. This led to a significant imbalance of land ownership, with the elite controlling vast tracts of land, while the poor became increasingly impoverished. Tiberius proposed a land reform known as the Lex Sempronia Agraria, which sought to redistribute public land, ager publicus, to landless Romans. He wanted to limit the amount of land that any one individual could hold and redistribute the excess to poor citizens. This proposal was extremely controversial, as it threatened the interests of the wealthy patricians and senators. Tiberius bypassed the traditional Senate approval process and took his reforms directly to the people, which enraged the Senate. In a shocking move, Tiberius was assassinated in 133 BCE, along with many of his supporters, by a mob of senators who feared his growing influence. Gaius Gracchus, c. 154, 121 BCE. After his brother's death, Gaius Gracchus picked up the torch of reform about a decade later. He was elected as tribune of the plebs in 123 BCE and continued Tiberius's agenda, but he expanded it significantly. Gaius's reforms went beyond land redistribution. He sought to curb the power of the Senate, provide economic relief for the poor, and extend citizenship to Rome's Italian allies. Key reforms by Gaius included grain law. Gaius introduced a law that provided grain at a reduced price to Roman citizens, which became a form of state welfare. Public works projects. He initiated large public works projects, such as road construction, which created jobs for the unemployed. Judicial reforms. Gaius transferred some judicial power away from the Senate to the equestrian class, Rome's wealthy non-aristocratic class, thus reducing senatorial influence. Colonization. He proposed the establishment of new colonies in Italy and Carthage to help distribute land more equitably. Gaius also faced fierce opposition from the Senate, who used legal and political tactics to undermine him. In 121 BCE, after a violent clash between his supporters and opponents, Gaius fled Rome and, like his brother, met a tragic end. He committed suicide to avoid capture, and thousands of his supporters were executed by the Senate in a brutal purge. The Gracchus brothers' deaths marked a turning point in Roman history, highlighting the increasing tensions between the Optimates, the conservative senatorial elite, and the populares, leaders who sought the support of the common people. Their attempts at reform laid the groundwork for future political conflicts, and were a precursor to the eventual downfall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. The brothers are often seen as champions of the common people, and their lives symbolize the struggle for social justice in a society dominated by elite. Their reforms, though short-lived, left a lasting impact on Roman politics. Gaius Marius, 157–86 BC, was a pivotal figure in Roman history, known for his military reforms and significant political influence. His career marked a turning point in the late Roman Republic, leading to profound changes in the Roman military structure and the political landscape. Born in Arpinum, a small town south of Rome, Marius came from a relatively modest plebeian family. His early life was marked by a strong determination to rise through the ranks of Roman society. Military career. Marius began his career in the military, gaining experience and recognition as a soldier. His early service helped him build connections and establish a reputation for bravery and leadership. Marius first became consul in 107 BC, a position he would hold multiple times. His ascent to power was notable, as he was the first Roman to be elected consul without prior senatorial experience. Populares versus Optimates. Marius aligned himself with the Populares, a political faction that sought to represent the interests of the lower classes and challenge the traditional aristocracy, Optimate. His populist policies helped him gain widespread support among the masses. Reforming the army. One of Marius's most significant contributions was his reform of the Roman army. He opened the legions to the capite censi, the landless and poor citizens, allowing them to enlist. This change shifted the army from a citizen militia to a professional standing army, increasing loyalty to individual generals rather than the state. Standardization and training. Marius standardized military training and equipment, introducing the use of the gladius, short sword, and improving tactics. His reforms led to the creation of a more disciplined and effective fighting force. Marius played a crucial role in the Jugurthine War, 109–105 BC, against Jugurtha of Numidia. His leadership and military strategies ultimately led to the defeat of Jugurtha, enhancing his reputation as a formidable general. The Jugurthine War, 109–105 BC, was a significant conflict between the Roman Republic and Jugurtha, the king of Numidia, in present-day Algeria and Tunisia. This war highlighted the challenges of Roman military and political maneuvering in North Africa, and exposed the issues of corruption and inefficiency within the Roman political system. Numidia. Following the death of King Micipsa of Numidia in 118 BC, a power struggle ensued. Jugurtha, a king who had been adopted by Micipsa, sought to consolidate power, leading to conflict with rival claimants to the throne. Rome had strategic interests in North Africa, particularly in stabilizing the region and securing trade routes. Jugurtha's ambitions and the instability in Numidia attracted Roman attention. After Micipsa's death, Jugurtha's violent takeover of Numidia, including the assassination of his rivals, alarmed Rome. The Senate initially intervened in hopes of restoring order. Jugurtha's ability to bribe Roman officials and manipulate political factions within the Senate showcased the rampant corruption in Roman politics, complicating the response to his actions. Initial engagements, 109 BC, the conflict began when Jugurtha refused to relinquish control over Numidia after the Senate's initial intervention. Roman forces, commanded by the consul Lucius Calpurnius Bestia, faced difficulties due to poor leadership and lack of coordination. Roman forces suffered humiliating defeats, most notably at the Battle of the Muthul River, where Jugurtha's tactics outmaneuvered the Roman legions. These losses led to increased scrutiny of Roman military leadership. Gaius Marius's rise. In 107 BC, Gaius Marius was appointed to command the campaign. He reorganized the Roman forces and implemented reforms, focusing on discipline and training. Capture of Jugurtha, 105 BC. Marius and his lieutenant, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, achieved significant victories, culminating in the final campaign against Jugurtha. The king was eventually betrayed by his own allies and captured in 105 BC, following a siege of his stronghold, the city of Thala. Jugurtha was paraded in a Roman triumph before being executed. His defeat signified the end of the war, but it underscored the issues of corruption that plagued the Roman Republic. The war prompted Gaius Marius to implement significant military reforms that transformed the Roman army into a professional fighting force, increasing loyalty to generals over the state. The conflict revealed the extent of corruption in Roman politics. It contributed to growing tensions between political factions, setting the stage for future civil wars. The aftermath of the Jugurthine War solidified Roman control over North Africa and paved the way for further expansion in the region. Significance. The Jugurthine War was a crucial moment in Roman history, highlighting the interplay between military action and political corruption. It marked the beginning of a series of changes that would ultimately lead to the decline of the Roman Republic and the rise of imperial power. The war also showcased the complexities of Roman governance and the challenges of maintaining order in an expanding empire. The Germanic campaigns, 113, 101 BCE, were a series of intense military confrontations between the Roman Republic and the migrating Germanic tribes, particularly the Cimbri and Teutons. These clashes had far-reaching consequences for Roman military tactics and the political dynamics of the late Republic. The Cimbri and Teutons were formidable Germanic tribes from modern-day Denmark and Germany, driven southward in search of new lands and resources. Their sudden migration into Gaul, modern-day France, in the late 2nd century BCE set off alarms in Rome. As they pushed closer to Roman territories, the Senate grew increasingly anxious, recognizing the looming threat to Rome's northern borders. Rome's first encounters with the Cimbri occurred in 113 BCE, when the Germanic tribesmen surged into northern Italy. Roman commanders, hampered by poor leadership and lack of coordination, failed to contain the invasion Battle of Norea, 113 BCE. In a shocking defeat, Roman forces were overrun at Norea by the combined might of the Cimbri and Teutons, led by their fierce chieftains. The battle not only exposed Roman vulnerabilities, but also demonstrated the raw strength and tactical cunning of the Germanic warriors. This defeat sent shockwaves through Rome, spurring the need for more drastic measures. Gaius Marius, the Republic's savior. In response to this growing danger, the Roman Senate appointed Gaius Marius as consul in 107 BCE, tasking him with neutralizing the threat. Marius, a brilliant military mind, wasted no time in revolutionizing Rome's army. Military reforms. Marius restructured the legions, opening enlistment to the Capetcensi, landless citizens, thus transforming the army into a professional fighting force that could be called upon whenever needed. His reforms made Rome's military more flexible, disciplined, and capable of handling the ongoing crisis. With a reformed army at his command, Marius led Rome into two decisive showdowns that would forever cement his legacy. Battle of Aquae Sextiae, 102 BCE, facing the Teutons in southern Gaul. Marius outmaneuvered his enemy with brilliant use of the terrain. The Teutones, who had boasted that not even the gods could stop them, were utterly decimated in this battle. Roman soldiers massacred tens of thousands of Teutones, while the survivors were captured and sold into slavery. This victory was a crucial turning point, signaling Rome's dominance. Battle of Vercellae, 101 BCE. The very next year, Marius met the Cimbri at Vercellae. Here, the fully reorganized Roman legions proved their superiority once again, crushing the Cimbri in a devastating rout. The once feared Cimbri were either slaughtered on the battlefield or captured. Their power was shattered, and the threat they posed to Rome's northern provinces was permanently neutralized. The rise of Gaius Marius for his victories. Marius was hailed as the Republic's savior. He became a military hero of unprecedented stature, beloved by the Roman populace. His reforms and leadership during these wars would have lasting impacts on the Roman army and political landscape, setting the stage for the power struggles that would eventually lead to the fall of the Roman Republic. This marks the beginning of our journey through the incredible world of ancient Roman civilization. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what fascinates you most about Roman history. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the rise of Rome.